curious to maybe give a bit of an idea as to like who we're talking to, because I was actually just talking with someone today, and it was like, hey, like we're not just talking to business owners. That's a bit too niche. It's a part of it, but we're talking to a whole variety of people. And so I guess maybe that's a pretty good place to start, would be like if I were to ask you, like when we're talking and you're thinking in your head, and these last, just kind of review a little bit, I know it's been a little while, but the last 5 episodes and then now going forward, who are we really trying to talk to here? What are the type of people that we're imagining? Because I know I'm imagining something in my head as I'm talking, but who are you kind of imagining in your head as you're having doing these podcasts?
Well, I mean, if you think of someone who, you know, is slightly more interested in having a life that, you know, looks at improvement, looks at something like, you know, if you're listening to a business podcast, a entrepreneurial podcast, or something of the like, maybe it's just self-improvement, right? Every one of those people have something in common. They all have some sort of idea that they want to be a little bit better. They want something to change, right? And so for me, when I think about someone, they could be any age. It could be some 20-year-old dude who's trying to learn everything he can, grab a hold of every bit of information that he can. But it could also be some parent who has a kid who's trying to just look to maybe learn a bit more about himself, make a little bit more money through something that he maybe could try, looking to find ideas, right? And I see that as being a very broad spectrum, but the people and their mindset is what I find very alike within them. Yeah, like that's what makes it broad. Like what I was saying to someone I was talking to recently, it was like, you know, it's not just for this one person, like for like entrepreneurs, though it is definitely for that also, but it's for anyone to, it's because we're trying to go more, it's kind of why it's a free to succeed. The idea that we're kind of going for is like, these ideas help to free you to succeed in life and in business. Yeah. And that's why I say, and when you say like end life, what does that mean? Like you think of like life coachy kind of stuff, like what is like being free in life? I think that just means like, you know, a part of life is your health. So that's where fitness comes in. And I know like we're not talking about, like nothing really in this podcast is like, hey, here's a step to step of exactly what to do. It's more about what to think and how to act and then how to be. You have to dare to think, don't you? Yeah, that was a little throwback to my my first podcast I had a few years ago. I don't think it's on, you can't even find it anymore. I can actually see them still, which is weird. I just realized that the other day. That's weird, yeah. Yeah, I can actually listen to them still. They're not there for me. Yeah, it's weird. Anyway, that's a side note, but yeah, so like to actually, it's more getting into that. And I mean, who isn't doing that, right? Like I think of, and someone honestly is almost more extreme in this, is like Diary of a CEO. I looked at his most recent episodes, like there's nothing to do with business in those last few episodes. It's gone completely a different direction. Yeah. He's talking about marriage and about life and about, and in a way, like that's almost too general. Like I don't quite plan going that far. I plan on still keeping it a bit more around the realms of like career, business, lifestyle, but not so much like I don't see us having like a whole conversation just about like marriage sometime, or like going into like, that would be surprising. Yeah, I wouldn't expect that. Even though, like, you know, like side note, I guess I did recently get married as part of why we had the break as well. Yeah, that did happen since our last episode. Yeah, it was a very, and I have the ring now on my hand, so that's the whole thing, because I thought I'd throw the marriage idea in there for that reason. But yeah, anyway, it just gives me a little reason to bring it up in a natural way. Shout out to myself and to Cora. Your wife. My now wife. Crazy. But anyway, I mean, though references to marriage may get brought up in the midst of course, conversations, but I don't... be relevant. But I so like, when I see the audience, it's people, yeah, like you said, good chance you've probably heard of like Atomic Habits and like different, like, you know, the Power of Habits, another one, like different like habit books. That's a big influence with both of us. People like that, like a Hal Elrod with the Miracle Morning. Like we're referencing books right now, but like then we go to podcasts. You could think of who would be a good I used to it's an interesting interesting podcast I used to listen to. I listened to them again recently. They're called the Mind Your Business podcast. They're actually someone that's influenced me a bit. They're very much in like they're very much a bit more in like the Tony Robbins kind of like real like, you know, hardcore with like with the manifestation kind of stuff. So it's like taking guys like that who very much in the mindset stuff, which I liked a lot of his stuff. He's actually who I listened to when I first started my business. He was a big motivator, encourager
because he's very encouraging, that kind of mindset. Some of it goes a little bit weird, but in general, I do think it's pretty cool. I did like a lot of his stuff, and so taking some of that stuff and combining it with like some of these more grounded podcasts, and like, I mean, I'm trying to think of other people that I listen to, like maybe like Chris Williamson and like these other guys who are more like maybe like you have a personality, like they're like gym guys, right? Yeah. And you're like a gym guy, and it's like they kind of match you. But whereas like with me, a big influence of mine would be like Jordan Peterson. So I'm like much more into like the deep thinking, philosophical kind of thinking, and like deep, psychological. But then applying that stuff, still trying to keep it the framework within. I guess within personal habits to improve yourself, as well as, because like personal habits to improve yourself, kind of we've established with other episodes already that we really believe that that's what helps you with your business, with everything. So it'll kind of, but it's still to some way interconnected into not just business, but your own, whatever you do with your life. I mean, like in a way, and that's actually maybe something to talk about here. Like, think about it. Like we have these like these borders between things, like your work and your life, the work-life balance idea versus work being a part of what your life is. And so it's interesting that we have these clear lines dividing them, but it's like trying to take a look at life and then applying these ideas of business and career and everything that you do, and somehow connecting those two things of rather than dividing work and life, but connecting work and life almost in a way, and through mindsets that can help both work and life. And if these mindsets help both work and life, that implies there's a connection between work and life. Like, what are you going to do with your life? Like people talk about getting retired one day, but then what are you going to, that's often a question I get in my head, and then talk to people that are getting older many times about it. People that are a bit more, even just slightly more ambitious than the average person. They're like, I don't want to just do nothing. Yeah. Like, what are you going to do when you're 70 years old? So you're just you're retired now, you just do nothing? Is that your goal?
Of course, I'm going to do nothing. I'm going to sit on the couch. I'm going to go golfing.
Yeah. Well, that wouldn't be so bad.
When I'm done golfing, I go home and I sit on the couch. My wife brings me food, and then I go to bed, and then I wake up, and you repeat that.
So like the very sexist white man.
Yeah, until I'm dead.
Yeah, she just kind of caters to your every need, and you just kind of sit around and do nothing.
Yeah, no, that's not what I would want it to be at all.
No, it's just silly to think, right?
I honestly believe that assuming everything in my life, for the most part, business-wise, financially, goes relatively how I want it to, there will be a very blurred line between my work life and my retirement life. I believe that there will obviously be a point in which my work will go from heavy business hours to
way less hours.
But I will never lose, as far as I'm concerned, I don't plan on ever losing this idea of fitness within my work, this idea of my lifestyle changing into this like more sedentary, back off kind of thing. I can see myself traveling more, but still being aware of social media, traveling more, still being being active like this, being retired, but now still being a part of the business that I grew. You know what I mean? I see it very much as a more blurred line rather than I'm working and then I'm retired. Like
even me with my business, I sometimes feel like I'm very much working still when I'm doing my job. Like a lot of people say, your goal is to, be able to do what you love so much that you never are actually working. So I disagree with both sides of the spectrum, because the one side says that work is just going to be the best thing you're going to do all the time. But that's also not very real for at least most people. And even if you love what you're doing, eventually parts of it will get tiring and you won't always love it. Eventually you'll have so many clients and so many things that have happened to repeat for like 10 years that you'll be like, okay, right now it's exciting, but then it might become a little more like dull. And then it becomes more about your mindset, which is why I also disagree with the negative people that say, oh, you just got to suck it up and work, right? That's also too negative. Like there's like a middle line where it's like you're real about the fact that work is still work. And even like I've heard it from many people. Like I actually remember someone a while ago saying like they did tattooing for fun.
Nice.
And they liked tattooing people, and so they got really good at it. They were really good at it. They did it on the side. They started a business, and then they hated it. After a while, like not immediately. At first, like, oh, cool, I have a tattoo shop. But then after about like a couple of years, I was like, yeah, now it's just a job, and I ruined my hobby.
I have an example of that too, actually. So yesterday, when I was talking to a guy, he runs a meal prep company, and I was chatting with him, and he was talking about how he's been a chef since he was about 14 years old.
Okay.
And he works as a culinary chef at a old folks home.
Okay.
So he's a full-time culinary chef at an old folks home. They have like a full master kitchen there, and all of a sudden he was like, man, I wonder what would happen if I started a meal prep business. Like there's nothing here that does that. So he started it. And so I was just kind of picking his brain yesterday, and we were chatting about it, and he was like, yeah, so I was expecting to make, so he does 2 different meals a week, and people can order as many of each as they want, right? With a certain limit, of course, right? And he was like, yeah, I was expecting people to get like 10 of each meal a week, and then just do this like 2-3 hours a week. And he's been in business less than 3 months, and he's already making almost 50 to 70 meals each. So like 120 to 140 meals a week for these people. And also now he's into like some more dessert stuff, some more snacks and stuff like that.
Yeah, you're getting name out. So.
And he's like, okay, well now this is like 12 to 15 hours a week on top of my full-time job every single week. And he's like, and I was asking, I was like, so do you see this being like, is your goal here to replace your full-time job? He's like, I don't know. Like, he's like, it doesn't need to. He's like, I'm fine with it being like this. He's like, well, it's just, I get to do this. He already has 1 employee, and and he's just doing this. And it's like, he's like, I don't care. He's like, if it grows past, it's fine. If it doesn't, he's not, because he's doing cooking regardless. He's doing what he loves regardless. The slide of it just changes a little bit depending on the angle. Did
he talk at all about like finding it to be more repetitive, not quite as fun as it was in the beginning?
He found it to be more stressful than his current job, right? And
there's that too. That's for sure with business.
He was like, yeah, like it's like this is tough. He's like, he's like, after next week, I'm taking a break for a month because I just need to reset.
Yeah, for sure.
I think
the stress is a big thing.
Yeah, and he's talking about how he's like, I don't know. He's like, I think he's very humble in that he doesn't expect it to grow. And I think that's part of the reason why he wouldn't give a direct answer into that.
He's an older guy? Or?
Yeah, he's like 50.
Okay, yeah, that's more common, yeah.
Or I think he's mid-40s, actually. Yeah, right. And so him and his wife just do this, right? And so it's interesting. And it's cool to see. And because for me, I'm this like, oh my goodness, you're starting a cool meal prep thing. You can replace you can make this.
And that's not always the case.
No, it's not. And that's it's a cool perspective to see, because he's not about the money here. He's not about, he's just like, well, no one has it here. This is so good for me. He's like, I needed to meal prep more. Right. Yeah. And then he started a meal prep business, and now he has tons of people doing it. So,
yeah. So like I take this middle of the road approach where it's like, I know that because I do have a job that has a lot of things that are quite mundane to do in there, though I have hired more employees now to do more of the mundane things.
Of course,
I wouldn't even have time to do all of this point, but if I did, I'd be working like 70 hours a week doing so much mundane stuff. It'd be absolutely insane.
I just don't think you'd do it.
I just wouldn't ever do that. No. And I wouldn't even want that. Like I'd rather go and work for the local business, whatever. I'd rather go just work for some other company than I would hate that, doing that. So it's funny because I made this thing where I know that I don't fully like that. So I have to work with my mindset every day. And I started like a business journal recently where I think this journal idea can work for anyone with your job, with your life, whatever you're doing. Like just before work for 5 minutes, pull out your phone if you're in like the break room at work, or if you're like at home before you leave, whatever works, and just spend a few minutes kind of writing about a summary of the day that you foresee coming. Basically, that's what I'm doing. I'm like, hey, so I see myself, I'm going to be doing this. Or first, I'll start with a little like, hey, how you doing today? Kind of like checking in on myself, kind of like, how's it going? Seeing how I'm feeling, where I'm at.
Did you do it today?
No, I didn't. Today's been a bit of a different kind of a day because I'm going, it's more my...
Cool. When was the last time you did it?
I think my last normal day would have been yesterday, so probably yesterday.
Do you remember what you wrote in yesterday at all?
Not exactly, but I remember starting with something. It starts something like I say good morning to myself and kind of talk about it to myself. And then I'll just say like, hey, so today we're going to be working on. I know I got this thing going on. I'm starting to sell stuff in UK, so I got this stuff going on in UK. I got these. I got a new company I'm trying to get going with selling my own brand of spices, right? Yeah. Which I've told you a bit about. So we got some work done on that as well. And I just write like a bit of a summary of what's going on. Things don't always go according to that exact plan, but it's just kind of nice. And my goal is to do it even on the off days that are a bit different. Like today's different because we're doing a podcast and things. But even on the different days to just still do it, just to keep the habit going.
So how do you dictate what's a successful day? Do you dictate
that's what this journal is supposed to be about?
So then I was going to say is that in a day where you don't actually get everything done in your journal, where something happens, you have to rearrange, change up, because I don't know, do you schedule in times of things, or do you just tasks that need to get done?
This is where I'm different about it, and it's that like it's such a, I'm very confused. This is something I'm like thinking through as I'm doing this, like hours, right? Because it's so obvious when you're an employee, you work by the hour. And then it's a bit easier to just get your head around the fact that you just work by the hour. Though I still challenge you to to take your mindset that you're not just, don't look at the clock and the hours, look at like growing in this company and look at like how yourself as like, you know, like here, like we've talked about, I think we talked about this in the episodes, but if not, then I'll repeat it here anyway a little bit. But basically looking at yourself as if you're an entrepreneur, even if you're an employee for someone, you're hiring your services out to that company. And then the better you are, the more you can demand of that company. And not even demand, if they're a good company, they'll just see it and they'll want to keep you. Like I have a buddy who's been in this one company for like a year, and he's already like almost like top management of this this thing.
Okay.
And because it grew, like this company like tripled in size in like a year. So it was a very, very, very small company and grew into like a medium sized company.
Okay.
And now he's just like a top spot
because he was the guy who was in and he helped.
And there were other people that were there though, but he was the one that got chosen because of how he works and how he is. And I know how he is, and he's just a really good worker, and he just has that mindset too. I think whether he knows it consciously or not, but he definitely does. I've just seen him work. And so that's just, he has a different mindset. He's not just there by the hour. He's like this. I can tell when he talks to his company, it's like he talks about it as if it's his company, like he's part of that team, right? And that's what that mindset is like. And so that's why you can do this journal idea for your job, but there it's easy. You have your hours, and what I would do is I'd be writing down, these are the things I'm doing. And it's not about getting them all done, though if you're an employee, you may have a set actual list of literally things that have to be done right now. But in general, if you're working more, I don't want to say a higher level, but I will, I guess, higher up in management where it becomes more nuanced. You're the boss a bit more. Then it's different, because that's the thing. It's not about being an entrepreneur versus being an employee. It's about being a leader of a business or being just, a staff member that kind of has your schedule's kind of laid out for you in certain jobs, right? You just kind of know what you're doing. That's what you're doing. There is so room for business innovation that you might be surprised that you can make a difference. And if you don't like where you're in your where you are in your company, you can work your way up in your company by trying. And that's where some of that mindset comes in. And then people that don't want to do that will just stay there. And then if you don't want to stay there, you can push your way up.
Exactly. And
you could also include that in journal. Okay, so today I'm doing my regular stuff. You don't have to write much about that because you know what it is. But you just talk a bit about it. And be like, but today differently, what I want to do is I also want to try doing this thing, and I want to talk to my boss about this idea and get this bug in his ear, and I want to show that I'm wanting to move up in this area.
You're showing like creative pushing, creative development.
Exactly. So it's the creative part. So like to me, I don't write down every little detail. Like I know I'm going to do this today. I don't even bother really talking about it. It's like this is just like I have a couple mundane things to do today. I might mention like, I got my 2 regular things I do, and then here's the different things I'm doing today. And it's not about getting them done. It's just about like, as long as during this time of my day that I work on these things and I'm productive and I focus on these things, even if I work on the one thing the entire day because I just got really into it, that's a successful day. But to me, I have that flexibility. I mean, obviously, as a boss or as an owner of a company, there are days where there's things that must get done. Totally. And then obviously, it's like that important and urgent stuff, like whether it's just important but not so urgent, that's a lot of things. But then if it's important and urgent, it needs to be done right now, obviously that's the first thing I do.
Makes sense.
And so then those things are a lot simpler. And so that's where it depends on your job how helpful this might be. But if your job involves a lot of nuance, a lot of difference, a lot of you deciding kind of what you're going to do, especially in management and leadership, and just if you're doing a creative type job where you actually have to create things and do new things, or if you just want to work your way up to a position like that in your company, but you're stuck in a more mundane one, but you want to work your way up, these would be the things that I would look at if I saw an employee doing that kind of stuff, being like, hey, yes, I was finished my day a little bit, but I was working on this one thing and I was thinking about this one system, or as I was working, I was thinking about how we do this. And I always try to quiz my employees to try to get, and they're not very good at giving me answers to these questions.
Have they gotten better?
No, it's just kind of, it's fine. It's how people are. And it depends on who you are and what you're doing. But I really noticed that, and that would be a big thing for me, as someone that would be like proactively sharing just ideas like, hey, like I know we do this, but I'm doing this all day long and we're doing it this way, but honestly this would really make a huge difference, because there's always something.
There's always, of course,
especially if I think of like assembly line jobs, which are the most repetitive, mundane kind of jobs where you're just like doing the same thing over again. You could see something that could be done differently. You could notice in your work environment what could be improved. You could notice something about something. There's no way that your assembly line position job is completely perfect, and just by noticing those things might actually be your ticket out of that spot and to become something more than that in that company, or to be desired by other companies, and then you can move your way, because some companies just don't treat you fairly and you just have to leave. But
it's true. Well, I mean, if I think too, when I worked at the grocery store, this whole idea of what you've kind of presented would be an example of where it would be very, very repetitive. And I would always have a very similar thing in my notebook, right? But if I take a look at like a supplement job, very different, there's actually a lot that I could do that would make more nuanced differences, because there's a lot of creative,
like your side job you have now.
Exactly.
I mean, yes,
right? Like, so there's a very big difference in the terms of the creative nuance that would be able to be done there. And I mean, actually quite a lot, right? So if I wanted to be creative, there'd be a lot that I could do.
Smaller companies typically are where you get more flexibility, but there is still something about you at your grocery job that was like that, because you were offered all the leadership positions. You could have been running the grocery store if you wanted to. You didn't want to. But there's something about you that made that the case. So you were being creative, and I don't know, I wasn't with you when you're doing it. So
I guess if I really dive into that, I mean, a lot of it was really building. It was building connections with the right people, and that could be something to write into a book, right?
That's part of it. How connecting with people.
How can you build relationships with someone who's in a higher position than you? Because it got to a point where I was being chosen by higher management because of connections. And by connections, I just mean like talking to them as humans, talking to them as people, and becoming more related to them, and having more relatable conversation, and that building into, I want to pick the person that I can relate to do the task, because I can relate to them and I can understand that they'll probably do it in a similar way that I would, or at least I can trust them that the job will be done in a way that's good, even if it's different than what I think. I'll say that oftentimes, to help, most management aren't like exactly the best people, like in terms of they like their way a lot of the time.
But did you ever get chances just to like, or maybe not even share, but just do things a little differently than what you were told, but you did it better. Like you made
absolutely
it, little things, right? Like how you filled the milk up or whatever, like the littlest things, right? There's just the funny little things.
Well, a good example of that is end work. So end work is the part that the store actually gets to decide usually. Some stores don't, but, and it's the end. So when you're walking through an aisle, right? Think of the parts between the aisles, right? That typically has sale items. That typically
the end caps.
The end caps, yeah. Thank you. And so the end caps, they're very, very individualized, right? So different people will do end caps completely different, right? You have to visualize if you want 3 rows of this product, 2 rows of that one, or 1 of that one, and what has to go on the bottom versus what should be on the top,
right?
And how much space do you want in between products, right? It gets very nuanced. And I got to the point where I was taught how to do it very specifically, and then my boss said, okay, I want you to go do the ends of these. I want you to go do those 4 ends today. And I would be like, okay. And then I'd do an end, and then I would be like, hey, do you want to come see it? And I'd be like, I don't know where my boss is. So I'd like text him. I'm like, hey, like I finished one of the ends. Do you want to come see it to make sure it's good? And he's like, it's probably fine. He's like, I'm sure it's good. Right. And then I do all the other ones, and then he'd come and look at them. He'd be like, yeah, you could probably change these 2 things, but actually it looks really good. And I wouldn't even have you change them. I'd just make you note that for next time.
Yeah.
Right. And then we went from there, and all of a sudden I stopped asking him about ends, and all of a sudden he stopped telling me to do them because I just did them.
And that's the part, where you get full autonomy, and then because you the ends they're your end caps, right?
Yeah,
that's how you do them. And so that's just like a very simple job, like being at a grocery store, and working your way up slowly in a grocery store. It's a very, very, very simple entry level job, and for some people it becomes their career because you can move up to being a manager. And
it's not hard. It's not hard to really.
And you had a friend that moved way up, and now he's like has a really good job connected to grocery. It's not quite with the same story, but like we talked about before. But yeah, he's moved all the way up. So it's really cool how these mindsets connect to all these things. But yeah,
it also is timing, really. Right, timing is always important too, right? Like
with jobs and
of course,
stuff.
right? Yeah, like you find a place and you see someone who's closer to being on the way out rather than the position you want. Someone just got hired within.
Well, and that's part of why being better can help you be hunted for a better job and moving on to a different company that has that position, but you're the guy that they want because they know you. Like I just heard this funny stories. People like they go to like a Walmart cashier that they love, that they see he's like a big business owner. I forget who this was, but I heard a story, and they just hired this Walmart employee for like a massive $100,000 really high level job because they were just so awesome. And I could tell that this person was just on it, and she just offered her this amazing job.
That's so cool.
That was somewhat related. I don't remember how it was related, but yeah. So it's just cool to see that it doesn't always happen that way. You have to sometimes fight for it. You can't just sit and wait. You sometimes have to actually go and like push for better. If you aren't getting it where you are, you have to move. But
well, I know that one of my clients that I've had in the past, we were having a session. He was telling me, he was like, yeah, we're hiring some headhunters. And I was like, what? I was like, what are you talking about? He's like, we're hiring some headhunters. So what's a headhunter?
Yeah, they're the ones that, yeah.
Exactly, right? He's like, we hired people to go look for people for a job, right?
Yep.
He's like, they're not looking for applications. They're looking for people who are doing something really good, and they're going to go try to take them.
Yep, that's a very common
Right?
thing. Yeah.
And I'm like, wow, that's okay.
And you will be that person if in your field if you're the one that stands out.
You should be headhunted.
Yeah.
You want to be headhunted.
And that's where that's where you find and that's where there's this idea of writing about your day. Even I guess we're trying to apply more of these ideas and how they can relate to anyone having a job, and not just entrepreneurs or people wanting to be
because
entrepreneur.
we want you to make more money, right? We want you to be able to
and just enjoy your life more, right?
Yeah, because if you're struggling incredibly to get by, right? If you're struggling with groceries, with this, with that, any regular crap, the stuff that you shouldn't have to be really stressing about, thinking about on a constant daily basis, right? Then these types of things are going to help you actually get to the point where you are going to be in a position to make more money that will allow you to have to stress less about this, focus more with your family, right? And all it takes is a bit of a mindset shift and a different way of approaching the exact same 8 hours you have at your job every day.
Yeah, the exact same time. I mean, you're there anyway.
Exactly.
And so why not try to, I think it all starts with trying to get yourself in a mind so that you can enjoy it as much as possible. Mm-hmm. And that's all the mental side of it.
Because I'll tell you, I enjoyed high school.
Yeah.
I enjoyed my first job. I stayed there for 4 years at this grocery store. I enjoyed going to school for personal training. I have enjoyed starting my business, and I've enjoyed my side job.
Yeah.
I've enjoyed every single thing that a lot of people say they hate every part of.
Right. Yeah. And I definitely can say that I enjoyed my job when I worked at like a seniors place that I worked at when I was in school, and I didn't as much enjoy high school. I had to work on that one a little bit. I would have been a better perspective if I could have then now, but I was in a different mindset back then, different whole world back then, really.
Oh yeah.
But my job, I did have that with my job, and that being said, then my employer also loved me because I was at work and I was happy to be at work and I was doing a great job.
Yeah.
And you just get to enjoy it more. And that's a big part of it. Like, I'm checking in on myself as part of the journaling is to help you like more self-reflective and checking in on like, okay, where am I at? How am I doing? And I'm sure that this can apply to someone working a regular job too, because at the end of the day, they have certain things they want you to get done.
Yeah.
And sometimes you're working on like fast mode and you're getting like 5 hours worth of work done in 3 hours. Like, and other times you're getting 3 hours worth of work done in 6 hours.
Yeah.
Depending on where you're at, right?
Yep.
And so at the end of the day, if it's like, you can, you don't have to tell anyone, but you can totally take a few minutes for yourself to help recenter yourself. And if you have a really shitty employer that like is like watching your every move, you have to maybe hide from him. That'd be terrible.
You have to go to the washroom and do it.
Yeah, or something like that, whatever. But I think most jobs you have a level of they just kind of are going to trust you at this point. You're just going to do your job. And if you need to just take a few minutes to just like reflect and get yourself back in a good headspace, and that's where this journaling part kind of comes in, or you can go review what your day was supposed to look like.
App in your phone.
Yeah, it's all in my notes app. Yeah.
I mean, I would prefer to write.
I've been doing it for me, I've been just typing it because it's just so much quicker for me.
On OneNote?
Yeah, I was doing it on OneNote. But I mean, you can do it however you want. But then there's right on my computer, and I can have it on my phone if I need it, or whatever it is, wherever I am. That's kind of the idea. Whatever's simplest, or you have like a little like pocket book if you want to like actually.
I've actually considered getting one of those.
Yeah,
I've heard that they're really, really cool. Just having
writing little things. You have this little like pocket notebook that you just write little ideas on.
I have it where people stop taking their phone with them on places, and they write their stuff that they want to get done on notes.
Yeah.
In a little notebook. And then when they go uptown, they're like, okay, write out my grocery list. And then they go like chat with someone, and they're like, oh yeah, I should go do that. Then they write it in their notes, and then they go home and they have this notebook and they go do these things. And
someone like recommends a movie to you, you can write it down in there.
You write it down in there. Right? You don't put it in your phone because then you forget about it.
Yeah, it's actually right physically there.
Because there's not 500 different holes you can go into on a phone.
Yeah.
On a notebook.
Distractions.
Right, but in your phone, you're like, did I put that in this app? Did I write that in this app? Did I write it there? Did I write it here? Or did I just think I wrote it down and not even wrote it? Is it not even anywhere? Did I write it but then?
And then you're on Instagram because you're distracted.
And then you're on Instagram, and then you forget that you even wrote it down.
Yeah, exactly. Whereas a notebook, it's a notebook.
And then a year later, you're scrolling through your notes app, and you're like, why did I write down like how to train your dragon randomly?
It's like, I want to watch that. Oh, I want to watch it that night. Oh, man, we didn't even do that. We watched another stupid movie.
Man, I should watch that tonight. Instagram forgets.
Yeah,
and then it's an infinite cycle, right?
Yeah, it's funny how many distractions are on there. Yeah, that's a valid reason. If I have less issues with social media than the average person, so for me, it's not as big of a deal. But it definitely, I I guess I get a bit more distracted on YouTube probably than I would by anything else.
YouTube is also my primary.
Yeah, that would be probably more where I get distracted, if anything. But
because I can feel good from long form videos still.
Yeah,
I don't feel the same level of just mind rot.
Yeah,
from
scrolling
from YouTube as I do from TikTok or Instagram.
Yeah, and I do think long form. That's why we're making a podcast.
That's why we're making a podcast.
I'd imagine that we believe in this a little bit
more.
We're not like, we're doing this to rot your brains.
Yeah,
but we will have shorts. But
we're not trying to teach you. That's true. That's true. So,
but they're supposed to be productive shorts.
Yeah, the shorts are supposed to teach you that you can come watch our podcast and get away from the shorts. Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but it's a game you have to play. I mean, you kind of proved that to me with this we released our first shorts just this week, and I'm like surprised by how many people it reached.
You literally got more views than I did,
which is hilarious. Yeah, I got like 1,500 views, and
I got 11.
You got 1,100 views.
My views were over double you though.
Sorry,
my likes.
Your likes were because of your people that follow you are more prone to actually liking it. But it's funny because at one point you're doubling me in views,
and then all of a sudden,
and then later on I was doubling you in views, and then we kind of leveled a little more to being I'm 1/3 more than you or something like that.
Yeah, it's fun how that works.
It's
we should check the analytics of that, see what it
how it did that. Yeah. Is it like a detailed page?
Oh, you get so much. You get so much information.
I didn't know you could do that.
Much
I don't know nothing about this. He's teaching me all this stuff about social media.
Yeah, it's like I'm teaching my dad how to use that. How to use.
I'm not quite that bad. I am. Yeah, I teach my dad technology.
You posted the videos initially as like these block posts, and they were like so zoomed in and blurry.
It's just what it did. This is what it did.
It was so fun. And you're like, I posted, and I went to look at it.
It's not right.
This is not.
But it was your fault for saying over WhatsApp, because then the quality was all crap
that part
too.
Was on me. That part was on
and
me.
You should know better than that.
I should have acknowledged that. No, I'll give that to you. Give that to you.
No, it's funny. But it's cool. Like, so I'm imagining. I was an earlier thought now a little while ago I had about it was reminding me of it. I'm imagining myself in the shoes of a lot of people listening as an employee. And I'm imagining starting this podcast with you and doing exactly this. And I'm like, yeah, I would totally do this in after work evenings, weekends. I would completely love doing this during those times. I really do enjoy doing this. And I could totally see me doing that.
It's the things you wish you had right, when you were in that position.
Yeah. And then you could be growing this podcast and enjoying it.
So we're trying to give back.
Yeah. But like at the end of the day, it can turn into a real business. And then somebody that has a normal job, but they make really interesting podcast episodes, one day they can actually have a real audience. They could sell a product to that audience and make a real business out of it. While just having a job. So like it's just one example. A podcast is a very popular current example. But the main thing that I'm remembering and hearing a lot of is like, if you're going to do something consistently, and I know you teach this a lot with fitness too, but it kind of just goes everywhere. Like if you just keep doing it, like you just keep going. At
this point, it tends to work. My coaching is half fitness coaching, it's half lifestyle coaching.
Oh yeah.
Because lifestyle coaching is an integral part of a regular human being achieving a fitness goal. Because a regular human being does not have time to devote their life to become a gym rat, right? They don't have time to devote their life to becoming this type of person.
Like 20 hours in the gym.
Exactly, right? It's not even happening. So what it really becomes is, okay, let's try to balance your mindset because you've had so many failures in the past. So how can we balance your mindset, make you work out a couple days a week, also make you hone in your nutrition, and all of a sudden now you're 20 pounds down.
Yeah, and like for me, like I've gained a few pounds, and it's all good. I'm not worried about it yet, but I always look at myself in terms of my trajectory. Where am I heading?
Yeah, it's like the decisions you're making, are they leading you closer towards being healthier or towards being fatter? And
that's why people often, when I do certain things, like, well, what do you mean you're fine there or whatever it is, whether it's mentally, whether it's physically, whatever the thing is, you're fine. It's like, yeah, I'm fine right now, but I can tell I'm always looking at what direction I'm heading. And that's everything in life. What direction that's for business. That's another example of a business life overlap.
Absolutely.
It's like, what direction is your business heading? Your career? Well, not where is it now? Where is it heading? That's that classic analogy of like a millionaire who's losing $1 every day is poorer than a poor person that has like $10, but he's gaining $1 every day. Like his net worth is going up every day. He's like in a constant growth cycle. And that's like with everything in life. And so with me, if I'm like, I'm starting to gain a few pounds. Well, if I do that for 5 to 10 years, I will be fat. And so that is just the reality. And so now,
and that's what happens to people. They blink. They don't acknowledge that they're on a trajectory. You blink an eye. You're 5 years down the road. You're 50 pounds overweight.
Yeah, and if you could acknowledge it within a year, like I did, and then you're like, oh, I'm maybe 5 pounds overweight, if that, or I'm just like starting to become, I don't even know. From my weight, it's not very good, those averages of like your height and your gender doesn't quite, when you Google that, it's hard to say.
It's less accurate the more you resistance train, the more muscle you
right, yeah, but I don't have really any muscle other than just the average, whatever muscle I would have. I don't have very much muscle yet, obviously. And so for me, it's like for my general weight class, I'm right in the spectrum of where it would be good, but I've been going up a pound, 2 pounds every.
So you're inching closer to the yellow or the red or whatever.
If anything, I'm in the yellow zone, maybe starting to approach it or something. Or I was. Maybe I've lost a couple pounds since I've been starting. But now I've been going to the gym twice a week, and I'm gaining muscle from that, which I've never been doing. So it actually taught me a thing and doing a better thing for me. From there, I am more. Yesterday, I did a thing I've never done before, really. I went to the gym, and then when I came home and I was done my work day, I went to the gym after work. And then instead of like watching something, I went and actually read my book for a little bit, for like half an hour.
That's cool.
And I've always wanted to do that in the evening before dinner, but I actually did that, and I'm like, it was easy to do that. I'm like, so that gave me that mental motivation to go and actually. This
is so weird hearing you say this
and do my other thing I wanted to do.
I love it. This is what I've been hoping that you would acknowledge for so long.
I'm not doing I'm doing like a lot of cardio in it. Like I probably am doing equal parts cardio as I am doing with the whole
resistance training
so far.
That's fine, man.
And that's might just how it'll stay. It might just be 20-30 minutes of cardio and 20-30 minutes of basically 30 and 30 with everything going on. It's kind of, I'm usually there for an hour, so it's like usually 30 and 30, including the warm up and the cool down and the everything. 30 minutes of it's like walking / running, and then the cooling down at the end, and 30 minutes of it is just like actual resistance training. That's kind of what it's been so far. I don't quite know what I'm doing half the time, but other than that, it's all right. My legs has been much better than my upper body. That's for sure.
Yeah, you mentioned. Yeah.
And today I had a leg day and it felt really good. Like I could actually.
Today?
So yesterday I had a really good. Yeah, it feels good. And I did upper body earlier this week. It's just horrible. And my arm still hurts. My upper body is so weak. It is horrible. And you don't realize those things until you try and push them. But
it's so fun.
I've been using my legs and my core and everything else for everything I'm doing in life, apparently, because I have no arms. It's actually insane.
Just give yourself 6 months all of a sudden. Man, if I could show you like my buddy Noah's transformation.
Yeah, that'd be crazy.
Yeah. And because he went from.
Does he still go to the gym out where he is now? He is? Yeah.
A few days a week. I'm hoping.
A few days a week?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
3 days a week he's going out. Yeah. I mean, I know he went from, what he told me is he said before he started working out, he was like, I think I look fine. He wasn't overweight. He wasn't underweight.
He was a skinnier guy.
He was normal. He was average, like regular, right? And all of a sudden he's 6 months into the gym and he's like, I was so small. He's just like, I had no muscle. Because now all of a sudden you don't even need to be flexing. And you're just like, yeah, I can see there's just a little bit more bump around my bicep. There's a little more oomph by my tricep.
Yeah.
There's a little more hold everywhere. Right? Yeah. Everything's a little tighter.
A little more boob to grab.
Yeah, that's one. That's one. Yeah. Now the episode has to be explicit, Dylan. Thanks, Dylan. Now the episode
I feel like the word boob isn't that bad. I'm pretty sure that PG movies say boob sometimes.
No, it's fine.
They wouldn't show one, but they. But
that's funny.
But yeah, no. So yeah, that's just been improving my life overall, and I look at things in terms of just how I look at it introspectively. I have judgments of things before I do them, which then whether or not I'm going to do them based on that judgment, because you have to judge things. You can't do everything.
Yeah.
So I have to judge things. So I mean, I judge things pretty critically. Hence the gym judged it for a long time.
Critical judger.
Before, not ever critical. The thing that was bad that you're doing it, other people are doing it. Just I wasn't sure that I wanted to do it.
Of course, you're critical of your own decisions. Yes.
Yeah. Well, for me, it wasn't like
Yes.
I thought. I don't like to make opinions of things for everyone unless I've done them. And then maybe if I went to the gym, really thought there's some really bad things about it, then I might say things about it being like a general term. But I'm very careful to not just write certain things off all the way unless I've done them. And if I don't do them, it's just because I just decide that it wasn't it's not worth what I want to do right now, just based on because you have to do that. You only have so many hours a day, you only have so much time to put your efforts into.
So you think you're gonna stay at the gym even next summer now?
I don't know. That's kind of the debate. It's for sure going to be great for my winter. That is a hands down for sure. And it will go down in the summer if I do keep it on going, because I will do my runs and more things outside.
Yeah.
And I want to play.
Yeah, of course,
and I actually want to play tennis this summer and do things like that. But these lifestyle changes, they all connect. That's kind of what I'm going at. And like this gym thing connected to my mental things, with helping me be more motivated, just feeling better, and more energized to do other things I want to be doing, just naturally feeling like doing them, not forcing, but actually wanting to do them. And then that's how it connects to business and everything, just kind of like going on that theme, how it's like a circle. It all connects, just these positive things in life.
It's cool how that works, right? The ability to make one positive change in area A and you see some sort of ripple effect in area B, right? You all of a sudden start meditating more, being area A, and now because you've done that, you're finding you're on your phone less because you have more self-control, and then because you have more self-control, you're on your phone less, you have more time, allowing you, oh man, I should really like start using that gym membership I haven't been using, and all of a sudden you go back to the gym. And it's only because you started meditating.
Yeah, and then as far as time is concerned, because you're wasting less time, you've gone to the gym, and then now let's say it gets to be a little bit late. It's almost time to cook supper or something like that. Maybe it's your day to make supper. Now I was lucky this last time. Like my wife was making me supper, so I sat and read for half an hour. But I was before that half hour for 15 minutes. I was cleaning things up. I wouldn't usually clean up, organizing stuff, and I could have gone right into cooking if it was my day to cook, no problem, and just had cooked a supper.
Exactly. Yeah.
I went and cleaned up supper afterwards for her because she cooked, and that was all good. And I just had through the whole evening, I just had a more motivated stance than I've had in a while, and that was like, that's cool. This is definitely connecting, and I had a pretty decent work
now
day.
You understand what I do as a career.
So it all connects, but other things connect too, and that's where I'm wondering for you. You're very strong in the physical realm, and I know my weakness has always been the more physical stuff, like the exercising ends of things, and focusing on like my diet and health. That's been, not that I've been like grotesquely ugly with my habits. I don't mean to say that, but I mean by comparison to a fitness trainer.
Dylan didn't brush his teeth for a year.
Yeah, well, I haven't gone to the dentist in a long time, but that's a whole other story. But anyway,
you were getting to a point.
My question to you would be then, if you're going to be self-aware for a second, what would be your weakness? What is the thing that you're the weakest in, that you're maybe neglecting, and maybe you still undervalue it and you still think that you shouldn't do it, and you're still like me with the gym? Like, what's my version of the gym where I was kind of like, it's good for people, but for me, I don't know if I need it. What's your thing like that you haven't really tried, that you maybe could try, but you were kind of judging it as like, it's not that important?
I mean, it's difficult because I give a good rep. I say there's so many good things that people should do, but I don't do all of them, right?
Yeah, and that's what I'm trying to say.
Because I don't have the ability to do all of them.
Of all the things that you do, because I know you do a lot of things. In my opinion, you do too many things.
Fair.
And so like my question to you, and I can look at it any point of view, but just think of a thing that makes you think, like when I thought of gym, I was like, yeah, gym's good for people. I don't disagree with the idea, but I myself, I don't take it that seriously. What's the thing that you don't take very seriously, but you do think it's a good thing, but you're like, I don't take it that seriously?
Okay, I could give you an interesting perspective, because there's actually the one that I agree with, that I would be able to say that with, is actually something that I used to say I really, 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 really liked, but I've kind of like fallen back off of and been like, you know what? I don't actually think it's that important.
Oh, okay, interesting.
Which is actually cold showering.
Oh, interesting. So okay, so you stopped on that. Hey?
I've moved away from it, and I've been like, you know what? I think it's good. I think it's interesting. It's cool. It can help give people
all those things
a boost, and it can do that. But I'm like, I have been able to do everything I need to do, and not have to step under my shower in the morning for 5 minutes when I wake up. And I have felt great doing my morning and doing a routine and doing everything and just going and doing what I need to do. And I was like, man, I just don't need to do this cold, wet shower.
That's basically how I thought about the gym in a way, except in a way, the cold, wet shower, I would put it into cold, wet shower. Obviously, it's a wet. You said that and I repeated it. cold, wet shower. Anyway.
The reason I said that is because now I just woke up and I'm all wet, and I'm like, that was annoying to me.
Yeah.
And it's because it wasn't like I had a shower to wash myself. I was wet. I didn't.
Well, I actually couple the two things together for myself, but
I did every so often, but like every day. I mean, it was just like, then I'm gonna shower. I'm showering twice a day.
But like, so it's like the gym, much bigger time commitment than a cold shower, like way bigger time commitment. And so then the results are higher, obviously. And then the time commitment of a cold shower are way less. So then the results are also way less.
That's true.
Because it's a small thing. And so that's why it's all in perspective, right? Based on, that's how I would take this. I would take it, okay, they're not the same spectrum. Like,
of course.
If you just quit going to the gym for the hours that you go to the gym and just a cold showers for 5 minutes instead, those two things aren't going to line up. So if you're thinking of, if you're expecting results of that magnitude, that's just not fair.
Of course.
Because it's just and that's why I love cold showers, because it's a thing that anyone can throw into their life and they can never use time as an excuse. Almost everyone takes a shower every day, and you can always end, and so I do. I end my shower cold. I never take a cold shower. If I don't take a shower one day, I don't have a cold shower. That's fine. But whenever I have a shower, I'm either a pussy and I keep it hot the whole time, or I'm like, nope, you're not a pussy today, and I put a cold and most days I put a cold. I don't always. Some days I'm like, you know what, it's cold outside. I'm gonna go outside anyways. I don't feel like it. I turn off the shower, but it gives me a little mental thing of like, today I am pushing myself, and it's really nice. And I do typically, basically, I shower every morning, basically. But if you don't shower in the morning, it's fine. You can do it whenever you do shower.
Yeah.
Right. But like at the end of that shower, what's stopping me from turning to cold for just 2 minutes? Just switching it to cold for like 1 or 2 minutes, even if it's just 30 seconds, just something to just kind of give you that little spunk and that little like push to tell yourself, right?
I'm not saying it's bad.
And then another thing that I use, the same thing, like, oh, I'm fine already. It's like, sure, you are fine already, but it's not about being fine already.
So where else do you use
It's about where can that take you?
Yeah.
Right, because I didn't know what the gym could take me. In my head, I thought it wouldn't make much difference. I'm noticing it make more differences than I thought it would notice.
True.
That's why I'm like, this is pretty interesting.
That's true.
You may do it and notice no difference at all, and then it's fine. And that's that is what it is.
Well, the
then.
Gym will make a difference if you actually stick to it. You got to stick to it.
Yeah, but I'm saying the cold showers now,
yeah.
But if you go back to yourself when you're doing those cold showers, I bet you it helped you certain days. I bet you there was days that you were less lazy because of it, that you were more active because of it.
I can tell you that. Yeah.
And you were very motivated. You were posting about it every day when you did it.
It's true.
It was a big thing. I remember that.
True.
And I bet you it did help you. I bet you if you did it now, it would also still help you, because why wouldn't it? We know the science behind cold showers. We both kind of looked into that kind of stuff with something like the Wim Hof stuff. And there's definitely some truth to that. It is good for your immune system, which is a thing that's more underlying, but it's just like a health thing. And then on
it also got me sick once because I was doing so much other stuff on top of it. Or it was a contributing factor.
Oh, really?
Because I was cold showering, plus doing all this crazy stuff, plus being busy, plus going out, plus doing this. And then all of a sudden I got sick, and I don't think the cold shower was helping keep me.
I feel you overworking yourself is what got you sick.
Well, all I'm saying is that the fact that I was friggin' getting myself to shaking cold was not benefiting in the moment my recovery towards my immune system.
Supposedly, it is actually been scientifically proven to improve your immune system.
Well, no, I think that's a long-term side effect, though, right?
I don't know. I would have to look more into it. I'm definitely not a scientist,
that's
so I won't even bother answering that question.
Touche.
I just know for myself that I've definitely never gotten sick from it, and I know
that's why I said contributing factor.
Yeah, and I know that, like, I mean, there's so many things, but I'm more so focusing on the mental benefits of it. That stuff's like more like that's just the cherry on top kind of stuff. Whether or not it really does that, I mean, supposedly it does, but like, whatever. It's everybody's body is different. It's hard to say one thing is just good for everyone physically. It's just those claims are always far too vague anyway.
It's very difficult.
But there's general things, and the cold shower is generally a difficult thing. That, like, to me, it's like I want to do this more often too. Actually, like daily, like a cold plunge kind of thing. Like I filled my bathtub with like ice water. I did that one time. And I managed to do it. I realized, because I do it so often, like, I'm very disciplined in this regard. I'm like, this is a thing that I've done for so long that I'm actually really good at this. I can just do it.
If I had a cold,
which is surprising to me.
If I had a cold plunge tub, you could convince me to take cold showers every morning. But because I also would like to do a tub, I would like to try it, because I've never done a cold shower in a tub before, and I'm not doing it in my apartment. Because that tub is so low. It is so tiny. I wouldn't even. I'd hardly get up to my stomach.
People have these things where you put water in it and then it like moves the water around and gets it so cold that it would be frozen if it wasn't moving and it cools it for you. So it's like in this thing.
There's some really cool Canadian brands who actually have some really. I follow a brand.
It's probably a few grand.
They're
I'm
about
sure.
$4,000.
Yeah, $4,000. I think one day
because it's got a purifier in it. Yeah. It's got a. You leave it in there. You close it up. You leave it outside.
And you'll probably replace the water like every
like few months
or something. Yeah, every few months. Yeah, versus
really
every day refilling it when you're doing a bath, right?
Like,
so it's still very so something like that would be cool.
You could convince me.
That'd be unique. That would be unique.
Yeah.
But anyway, like those are all. Yeah, there's so many things that you can do. But that would be one of the things that you think of with when you're saying like
in the stage that I'm in right now.
You kind of deem that thing as it's just not really necessary.
I have assumed it less value right now.
Yeah, exactly. So it's kind of just been shrugged off, and it is a smaller thing. It doesn't take as much time, so it's easier to just say, oh, it doesn't do much because it's like a 5-minute thing you do.
Yeah, because while I know I'm sure it had benefits. It's not always direct, right? It's always a result of, and I might not be able to see it. So if I think back to when I was doing them consistently, could I say that I was probably more focused? I was probably starting work earlier, right? That's probably a result of it. And now I might be giving myself a bit more time, which I also don't think is bad.
No, right? I don't think it's about that either. I think it's just like while you're doing what you're doing, it's just giving you more focus.
Yeah.
And it's just, I don't know, at the end of the day for me at this point, it just feels good. I just like doing it generally. Like
I like what you said about doing the cold shower after the regular shower.
I always do that, yeah.
I actually like that idea.
I'm not really about making it harder on myself. I'm like, I have a nice hot shower, do my whole thing, and then I end it cold.
I would be more likely to...
Because you're already in there. Now you look at the things like, and basically I remember like, so you're going to be a pussy today, Dylan, or are you going to put that...
And like, you got to turn it that way anyway.
I'm probably like 95% of the time, like when I'm in the shower, it turns cold. But there's a few percent, especially if I'm like, whatever, it's on the weekend and I'm out somewhere else and I'm just like, I just don't feel like it right now. But it's always a good idea. If I could get it to 100%, I always do it. It would always be, there's never a real good excuse for why I ever don't do it, because it always just feels good. I always just like, yep, I jump out of there feeling more just up and just ready to go. It's a nice little mental reset. And some of them can be 30 seconds, like short. Some could be longer depending on the day.
Yep.
Sometimes I feel like I'm in a rush. I just want to get out of here. That's fine. Then just do a quick one and then get out. That's also a thing, right? Just like keep the habit going. And that goes with anything. Like anything that you can do, like a mini version. I've told myself for the gym, I'm like, if I don't want to go to the gym, and I'm like, hey, I'm good at cardio. That's my thing. If I go to the gym and we can, and I'm like, go to the gym, we're going to do a run and we're going to leave. So we're not going to do the physical thing.
So you're saying that, do you end up doing a workout after anyways?
Well, it depends what happens. So, and then I'm like, I don't want to do that. I'm like, no, go to the gym, walk on that treadmill for half an hour and then leave. That's fine too. And then you go there, you start walking, and hey, you know what? Maybe one day I will go there for a nice fast-paced walk, get myself a little motivated, like, I'm just not feeling it today, and I end up leaving. That's okay. It's better than
because that's still what you still said that was okay. You still said to yourself before
so you can't lie to yourself.
Okay.
You have to actually tell yourself these things. Like someone had said, like the extremes, like go to the gym, put on your shoes, and then take them off and leave.
I told you. I've said that in a past episode.
And like that's one thing, but for me, it's like that's a little much. But
you have a bit more discipline than that. You can do it,
and that just also just sounds almost silly. But like go for a walk at the gym.
Yeah.
And then if you decide that the walk can lead to the run, then do the run. And after the run, if you decide the run can, then now you go and do the actual weight training, then you do that. Like even just yesterday at the gym, I was like, I went there for the walk and I was doing the run. And I was like, should I just keep running and just stay with this? And I was like, because I was like finished my run and I was doing another walk afterwards, kind of cool down. I was thinking about what I'm gonna do next. Like, no, I think I should. I think I could easily just go over there and just do my leg workout. And I'm glad I did, and it went well. I did my squats and all my other things. And it was fine. I went through the whole thing and it was good. But yeah, so like it gives you that moment to kind of like decide as you're doing it. So sometimes to take simple steps with things. Like start with like the more easier point of entry. I feel like that maybe is what we're getting at here. Like the most minimal effort possible to enter to start doing the thing that you're doing. Like just think about boil your thing that you want to do down to the easiest thing. If you want to write a book, boil it down to writing out your thoughts once a day about something for like 5 minutes in like a journal. Start like there. Whether you want to, if you want to write like a fantasy book, write a little bit about like a character that you want to make in your book. Write about this character for 5 minutes a day. And just
describe an arbitrary character, fantasy character
from your head that you could create.
It doesn't even have to be the one you use. It could be could be anything. Yeah.
Or if you want to start a podcast, start writing show notes.
Start talking.
Yeah, or start talking. But really easy is like you have a voice memo or writing. If you're better with writing, just writing out like I've done for a lot of this episode is actually one of our first, just having no notes for it. We just kind of went. But the other episodes and lots in the future too, we will have notes for them. And I've written down lots of notes, and I've done that in the past. And before we even started, I was writing notes about the podcast. Yeah. So start writing some notes about what would be your notes for your episode, and just give it a starting point. And I use that in business all the time. Like I'm like, okay, like if I want to start this seasoning company that I'm starting now, where do I start? It's like, well, I should probably first start off like just I want to start like some kind of a brand. It was very vague.
Easy.
So I was just like, okay, well, what are the kinds? So I started narrowing it down. What are the kinds of things? Well, I'm in food products. That's the thing that I sell, so that makes sense. And I already sell some other people's seasonings and stuff. Yep. So I'm like, hey, you know what? I think seasonings would be interesting. And so then I looked into people that sold seasonings. And also part of why I chose seasoning too is because seasonings has this easy point of entry. It's much easier to get a seasoning made, just a mixture of spices, versus like a sauce where you have to like make your own recipe of a sauce. Here it's much simpler than that. And you can like smaller minimum order quantities and all these things. So just made the barrier of entry to getting a brand going as low as possible.
And it's also it still even is something that you're passionate about and use on the literal regular.
Yeah, because I actually like to barbecue. And so it'll, in the moment, you feel so much like, oh, I have no idea what I want to do. Like, how can I connect something to what I actually do in my life? I felt very much like that. I still do sometimes. But now that I'm doing this, like, I guess this does just make sense. This is simple. Yeah. It does just make sense.
Well, I mean, that even goes to how I got into personal training, period, right? Like how I started coaching was you asked me the question, what do you want to do with your life, right? And it's like, and I was like, I ain't got no clue. And so you said, what do you like doing? Right?
Yeah, it's a good starting point.
That was the question set you asked me. And I was like, I like the gym.
Yeah.
And you're like, is there a career there? Right?
Of course there is.
Right.
Yes,
and I was like,
clear one.
I was like, probably. So then I Google it and then find an answer. And it was just like, I guess I could do that. And I've literally never actually thought of doing anything else since that one moment. And I can picture where we were. We were sitting on the balcony of a Canmore hotel.
Oh, is that where that was?
Yeah, with Nathan. With
the first time
our
we
buddy.
Went.
Yeah.
Okay.
And ever since that single moment right there, I
don't remember that.
I was like, cool, that's what I'm doing.
And that's another part, actually. Maybe we'll tie this into this episode here for a little bit. Having, like, I was thinking about this recently. Like, what is it to have a good friend? In life, and this helps business like crazy, because like this is what's just jumping like bouncing ideas off people, and I've bounced many ideas off of you. We've listened to many podcasts to start the company I do have going. I think we shared that in a different episode where we talked about the initial
time where you talked about like the Amazon podcast you listened to.
Yeah, we were driving together from the cabin and everything, and it was like that conversation was probably very influential in me getting that going. I remember it's a thing. I remember the turnoff we were doing. It was by saying the gas.
See, and I don't remember that. See, that's like what?
It's the funny things that you remember.
Yeah.
But yeah, I remember turning off on the highway there and like going that direction. Yeah. And we were talking and I remember listening to that.
That's
and then we had paused it and we were like, hey, this is interesting.
This is like,
and that was kind of where we started talking about
concept, it. Actually.
Yeah. And then it kind of went from there. And then for you, it was in the balcony. A much more interesting place to be. Yeah, in Canada, looking at mountains.
Yeah, we were staring into
it was a little more pretty.
Looking at, but I mean, like the fact that what was actually so interesting about the fact that we had that conversation in the mountains there is because the search results I got when I Googled it were local only because I was there. Right. So if you had asked me that question in Manitoba, I probably wouldn't have found the school that I went to in Calgary because of local results. Right.
Oh, I see. Because they brought you local. Yeah. Right? Around
and
Canmore.
So that's why I moved to Calgary for this whole thing, because these results I got were local, and because I remember my parents trying to convince me to find something closer.
Local. And you did look a little bit.
And I did. And I'm like, there's nothing even remotely
this is way
close
better,
to this
you're
option.
Thinking. Yeah, I remember you saying that.
And then now you ripple effect it. You say, now my coach of over a year was my teacher in that school. Right?
Yeah.
Like my actual fitness coach, like for my coaching, right? He coaches me in training, and that's only because I knew I'd have no idea who the heck he is otherwise, right?
But then bringing it back to why you're in Altona you know, is
Right.
kind of because of the fact that I talked to you
We
about
also had a conversation
advantages
about, yeah.
of you know, starting a business in a smaller town, and why that might actually be a thing that's actually beneficial
Yeah.
in business, because you don't have a massive amount of competition.
The
and
level
you,
of competition
and you had
is there.
opportunities
Yep.
with the local gym and all this stuff, and so that kind of brought you. Yeah, it kind of brought you to a whole
Back to the
different
small town.
Yeah, a different point of view than what your people that you were a part of there were mostly doing.
Yeah.
And it was kind of like that was my third party influence. And then it kind of ended up bringing you back here, but you also got ideas from that course out there, and just all these things connected
You were
to
able to
bring you where you are.
blend them. I mean, I still remember when I was about a week finished of my course in Calgary, and I was working out at the gym that we got the membership for free from while we were in the school, because we did all of our in-person stuff at that gym. So the gym was like, okay, while you guys are here, you can have memberships. And so I was training there. It was about a week after. I actually wasn't sure if my membership was still going to work after, and it still was working. And the owner of the gym was actually working out. I had met him a couple times, and he was like, "Oh, hey, like Sam, like how's it going? How was the course? How was your practicum?" And I'm like, "Oh, it was great. It passed with flying colors." He's like, "Awesome, man, really good to hear." He was like, "You want to chat about a job, right?" And I was like, "No."
Yeah, so it was bringing you right into it.
Right?
Yeah.
And I was,
and
like,
you would have had it probably would have been a fine different thing, but
exactly.
you would have been a different approach, but you could have gone that way as well.
It was possible, right? And I was like, yeah, no, I'm actually like gonna move home. Like I'm already moving. I'm gonna be moving home to become a person. Like I'm starting my own business. He was like, nice. He's like, to be honest, that doesn't really work for first-time personal trainers. It's not really they don't really ever see the success. And I'm like, no, I'm gonna go try it.
Well, look at me now.
I'm gonna go do it.
Here you are.
Yeah, here I am.
You just had one of your biggest months that you've had ever.
Yeah, exactly. So
And you're making and this is that you're making a living
exactly
on your business, and that is, I mean, of course, you're making a living for a single person, mind you.
This is true.
A whole family you wouldn't be making a living
This
for.
is true.
But you're still making a decent living for a single person, and that's great.
Yeah.
As a solo guy you're at right now.
and,
So
and like you said, if we look at trajectory,
it's an upward trajectory.
is good.
Yeah.
And so that's why I mean, it's been 2 years, right? Like I would have made a lot more money a lot sooner had I taken this in-person job, because there would have been instant wages plus session costs plus existing clientele.
Yeah,
plus
for sure.
There would have been a
higher living costs out there.
That's a good point. That is true.
Manitoba
as well.
versus Alberta pricing.
I might have been living the same life there with more money. So
Yeah,
I guess,
probably
who knows?
less, honestly. How man,
guess that's
the deal you're getting on rent out here versus
It's true.
out there.
That's a good point.
I mean, you have a bunch of roommates, so it wouldn't be as bad then. But now you have no roommates, you have your own place,
Yeah.
and it's affordable, which
Exactly.
is a pretty cool thing. And you're building something that's going to last forever, so that's
Exactly.
amazing.
Yeah.
And so I feel like another thing that we're like, it's almost sad that like when we think about friends and conversations with people, like a lot of people listen to podcasts also because they're starved for real conversation. And even though I have a lot of real conversation with you and other people, there's also a lot of just kind of surface level conversation, whatever.
Yeah.
And then I'm a person that could just, and you also are, that can just have a ton of conversation. Like we love conversation.
Infinite.
And so
Be
podcasts really help to fill that void a bit. So
Yeah.
it's nice to be able to have an option to listen. And then of course, listen to very interesting people from all over the world that are like really high level, interesting people, have a conversation. It's an amazing thing. And it's been influencing all areas of life. And it's just, for people, it's a huge, really, really cool thing. But it also does show that people are missing out on real conversation, real dialogue. And I don't just mean everyone has like a buddy or two, but like who do you have that like you actually shared what's actually really going on inside of your mind with? Like I have a buddy who I'm probably the main guy that he talks about that kind of stuff with. And I went out with him recently and he started sharing stuff with me, but ideas, thoughts. And then I started sharing my thoughts about his thoughts. 'Cause that's what friends do, I say.
Yeah.
And he's like, you're the only guy that does this. And I'm like, what do you mean? I'm the only guy that actually like listens to you? Like, is that what you're trying to say? And that's basically what he is. Like, yeah, I mean, really, like, we'll talk and you banter with people. But he's like, who else do I share thoughts with like this? about whether it's life decisions, ideas, thoughts, things going on. And then I will go and I'll like summarize what he said and bring it back to him, help him understand it better.
Because other people would just be like, oh yeah, interesting.
Yeah, it's very interesting. Yeah, cool. And they might be listening, but they might not say, or they're half listening,
or
they
just don't have the intent to give the same.
It's just
that they're being given.
And people don't want to be serious anymore about anything, and it's like being serious has been labeled as being boring for some reason, whereas I am fully to the part where it's like there's two things that are the best conversations in life: the ones where you're just belly laughing and it's so funny, and then the ones where it's actually has some kind of meaning to it.
Where you're like gripped.
You're gripped in an interesting conversation. Those are the two best things. I wouldn't even put one. They're equal. Mm-hmm. Like if you look for podcast equivalents, I would say like you would watch like Kill Tony with like the comedy podcast, and you're just laughing your ass off most of the time, and they're not serious at all. Though there's little serious bits that get thrown in there because a lot of comedy is based on real life.
Of course,
good comedy is often. Some comedy is a bit more grotesque and a little bit off there, but then they in this, if you don't know this podcast, it's like a live comedy podcast where they'll share their 1 minute little comedy bit, but then they'll have an interview about it for a while afterwards. And in the interview is actually the best part usually. And they're usually just very funny. They make fun of the guy or something, or it goes back and forth or whatever, just a lot of joking. But in the interview, it's the most interesting part because there's actually this dialogue, but it's based on humor. And it's just funny, and you're just trying to make jokes and be quick and be witty. And I love that. And then you go to like someone like, who is a comedian, but his podcast is a bit more serious, like Joe Rogan, just having a genuine, and he's the number one podcast in the world for a reason. He just has very genuine conversations with anybody. And he has every person you can imagine, every type of person, from historian to political person to Donald Trump himself to all the way to who was I going to say? That's the opposite of Donald Trump again. Blanking on his name right now. Really would have made sense, but he's like the more liberal guy that he was friends with. That's more like about. Oh man, I really wish I could remember his name now. This is really bad. But anyway, he has things on both sides and very just real conversations with all these very interesting people from all sides of life, all areas of things, and it's just genuine conversation, and that's kind of what he encapsulates like real genuine conversation really well. And then these comedy podcasts really brings in really good comical funny conversations as best as you can in a podcast form. And the reason, and that's like that podcast Kill Tony is growing like absolutely mad, and Joe Rogan's always been growing like mad. Like they're both just huge. They're both the biggest in their genres, I think.
They both need those are both parts of that. I feel like everyone needs both of those. That's why it's so
absolutely. That's why I mentioned both, because I don't want to say just about having genuine like real deep conversations, though. I guess if I had to say, if I could only have one, I would say that genuine conversations would still come first, but you need both. Yeah. But if I had to choose one, I want to be able to talk seriously with people, not always just be joking, because that would become empty after a while. But to me, it's like being able to have those real conversations, get things off your chest, is what enables good humor anyway.
Absolutely.
So they kind of connect at the end of the day. And then if you've had good conversations, you'll all of a sudden start being funny because you're ready to move on. Or if you've been funny for a while, eventually you're like, hey, you know what, I got something I actually want to talk about, and you move into there. They usually compliment each other.
They both build trust, honestly.
And they both,
if they're done right. I mean,
who can you joke with, right? That's a big part of a friend.
Yeah.
Can you laugh with them? Can you make fun of them? They can make fun of you.
Because that's a sign of honesty with that person. Yeah. That's a sign of truthfulness, right?
Yeah. And then you make fun of someone or something, and they're like, and they laugh, but then like, you know what, actually, and then you start like to have like an actual political or philosophical conversation about the things, like, okay, so like how much of what you joke about do you actually mean? And the next thing you know, you're having like a deep conversation about the joke because it connects. So you always take it with a grain of salt, so you laugh first. It's like, it's funny. It's like, okay, but if we're actually about it seriously, like, let's say everybody makes jokes these days about like, Donald Trump because he's just, whatever, he's president-elect again now. So that's the whole thing. Everybody makes fun of him, and that's all fine. I have no issue with that at all. I think it's great to be able to make fun of anybody, even your own presidents and prime ministers should be able to be made fun of. That's awesome. But then if you all of a sudden have someone making, and I mean not the kind of like, I wish he got shot in the head, because that's only a joke.
that's just aggressive.
That's just like, okay, so now we are wanting to murder those we disagree with. Cool. Go join China or Russia, have fun. Or North Korea. Go have a good time out there where anything that you don't believe in can get shot in the head. Cool. Go there. But if you're in the most people, even on left or right, I think the majority of people, whether you're liberal or conservative, I don't think this is a conservative thing. I think this is just a commonsensical person thing, which everybody that's somewhat moderate can agree on, is that we just want to be able to have some dialogue, some real conversation. And so then if a good friend of mine, if I had a good friend that like you, I can joke about something, but then with the joke, we can be like, hey, so I know that was a joke, but now let's bring this to a conversation. So let's say you made a joke about on Trump's expense because he says a lot of stupid shit. And you can make fun of lots of it. That's totally understandable. Make fun about it, cool. But then maybe like, hey, okay, so like, how about this thing about him? And next thing that turns into a real conversation. That would be interesting. And that's a simple way of how a joke can turn into a conversation.
Yeah.
And if you could talk about something as controversial as Donald Trump himself, if I could talk to someone about Trump and we both made fun of him and then talk seriously about some of the things about it all in one conversation, that would basically give me a summary of that person, knowing that I can trust this person because we both didn't hate each other afterwards. We both still could talk and be friends and be connected and joke about that. And we can completely disagree. It doesn't matter as long as we both learned something. Because to me, I actually heard someone talking about like, what's the point of debate? Because debates usually never change anyone's minds anyway. And the main point of debate, and that they were kind of talking about, or at least what I got from it, was it's about getting the ideas out there. It's not necessarily about like, I don't need to convince you. I just want you to understand this idea and you understand my idea and we both learned something. And then that piece, like a lot of things I disagree about, like a couple pieces I took and a couple pieces you took, and that will slightly adjust our general view of things.
I think the biggest thing that a debate does is probably fully change, or at least more drastically change, the opinion of the people who know less about the thing that the people on stage or wherever they are debating about.
Sorry, I should rephrase, because the number one thing is for the audience. But for the people debating.
Sure.
I mean, for them.
Their minds don't typically get changed.
Because most people that are listening aren't debating famously on stages. You debate with your friends or with one person, right? And we usually think that the debate is about changing their mind or something. That should never be the goal. Any good debater would know that too, I think, unless they're just hating each other. But to have a decent debate, it's more like, I hope that they can take something from what I say that I think is true, and they can start to wrestle with it later on in life and as the years go on. And then I can, and then also, I hope that they will give me something about the subject that won't change my mind about everything, because it doesn't happen that quickly, but it gives me an idea that may never change my mind towards their idea, but it gives me a whole new idea. It just expands your mind.
Right. Like if it makes you acknowledge a gap or a misled idea in your thing, that you are humble enough to accept it and maybe adjust a view that you have, because
like one slight part, or maybe it changes your view to not even their view, but just a completely different view. Like just the combination of their idea and your idea, you combine them and they make a completely different component that goes a completely different direction.
That's totally possible. Yeah,
because that could totally happen. It's kind of like when like in chemistry, like you mix two chemicals and they can become very different things.
They don't just become half of each.
Like there's like anyway, that's going into chemistry. I'm not going to bother. I'm going to probably butcher it, but there are certain mixtures where you mix them together, like iced tea and water, and it's just iced tea and their water. They're two separate molecules.
Yeah, the chemical of
but
iced
then
tea
when you like burn something with fire, it becomes a completely different chemical. They're not mixed. They're completely different.
Yeah, like you have the one also that's freaking charcoal.
Yes, charcoal now, which is not wood and fire. Or whatever. Or it's not even wood anymore. It's just a completely,
it's not half wood, half fire,
or half something else. Whatever. It's half heat, half wood. It's not. It's just completely different.
Exactly.
And if you so it's that idea.
That was probably a testament of our IQ right there.
I do remember something about these mixtures, what they were called in chemistry, but I'm probably going to get it wrong, so I'm just going to not bother even trying.
Honestly, touche.
But I do remember learning about this, though.
So I'm definitely not going to try.
Anyway, so I think in conversation, you get, especially if you're like disagreeing on something, slightly debating it a bit, maybe. It would be that the hope would be that you would just think about things, and that the mixture of ideas forms a whole new.
For one or both of you.
For one or both of you, yeah. The goal is hopefully for both of you. If you're both listening, odds are they know something that you don't, and you know something that they don't. Odds are you do in both ways, and you can take something from the conversation. And to have those kinds of so a mixture of all these conversations with a person is so important. And then going way back now, as we're kind of wrapping up here, going way back to the beginning of this episode, where we talked about like what's the point of this of this podcast. I hope that we can encapsulate that. Having those kinds of conversations on a microphone between me and you, and with other people. We do, as time goes on, plan to get people to interview, and I'm hoping to the two of us interviewing them. I'm hoping to sometimes have them in real life and figure out how to record that nicely. We do have the setup for 4 people if we really want to, so we could make that happen.
We could,
or at least 3 anyway, like a third person.
Someone could just stand right here.
Yeah, we'll have to like reposition things a bit. But I think if we like angled it and then they'd be sitting 3. I'm pretty sure the camera angle, we'd figure something out. I actually know exactly the camera will go right over there, and then he'd be sitting right over here. That's exactly how it would work.
Yeah,
That's
actually
basically
a
exactly
good
how that
setup,
would go.
actually.
And
Yeah.
he'd be right over there. Yeah. Anyway, something like that. It'd be super cool. And to be able to have these conversations, but then also to leave you with this idea that, try to find this in your life as well. Like if you have friends already, but you like to be closer to them, like just start bringing up real things and start talking about them, and then start making jokes around them, that things that you find are funny, and start talking about them and joke about them, and see. And if your friend reacts very badly, then they weren't a good friend anyway. So who cares?
Honestly.
And if they react like, hey, and then they start talking about it or whatever, and you can have interesting conversations. It doesn't have to be about like political stuff by any means.
It could be literally
it could be
anything.
It can be just about your life, things you're doing. It could be about whatever you're interested in, history, psychology, philosophy, whatever you're interested in.
Honestly, one thing that I've found has worked to see if people actually care about a topic or not is I take something relatively simple that I know they like, and I ask them why they like it.
Yeah, right. Yeah, of course.
Right,
yeah.
and it's something like just. If you know someone relatively well, you're okay friends with them. You can just be like, well, hey, like I know you really like video games, like you really like gaming. Like what makes you like gaming so much, right? And if they're like, I like games,
It's like, cool.
it's like, okay, but like what do you like about them, right? And you can, if that can bring you into an interesting conversation about a bit of why the person likes that thing, and then all of a sudden you can dig into different areas, right? And you can learn something about a person, right?
Yeah.
And I've always found that the people I end up getting the closest with are often the people that can just answer questions and give an interesting answer that can lead to a conversation. Not that whether or not that person answers deeply is a dictation of what if they're a good friend or not. Is not the point.
No, because people are different. The way they think, the way they act are different.
Exactly.
I have some friends that are much deeper thinkers, some that are more just whatever.
Yeah.
And it depends on the topic. And for them, that's not the point.
Yeah.
But to show the interest and to show and because anyone can talk real if you talk real, and if they're willing to, you can get there. It takes effort though. It won't right away work. You have to grow that with people.
Some people have much higher defense barriers up than other people.
Yeah, that too. Or there's more introverted. There's just less inclined to.
Yeah.
And it's just, there's all kinds of factors. It's not cut and dry, simple. It's not going to look one way or the other, but just having real conversations. And I do believe the success of long form podcasts, especially like Joe Rogan, these kinds of conversational based ones,
it gives people that
feeling. And I know I love that feeling of having a real conversation, and we hope
like there's like this little thing that always tickles in my brain.
It goes in there. And even when we're in a podcast, we
conversation.
have some of our most interesting conversations right here, because we take it a little more seriously, because we're like, we already try to do that in real life normally. But now there's the microphones, there's the headphones.
Why we're extra good at it now.
There's the cameras.
Yeah.
So now we're taking it a little extra seriously. And generally, we have notes and stuff. Today we actually successfully, I think, really well went through a whole episode without any notes.
Yep.
I kind of wanted to say, let's just see if we can do it. That's kind of what I said.
Happens.
And then I think it happened.
Wasn't exactly hard.
No, it wasn't exactly. I figured it wouldn't be, but in the moment you're like, I don't know, and so you apply the same thing that we did for this episode. You do that just with a friend, without the recording. Just do that.
Set up the camera, hide it.
Yeah. No, but act as if there's a camera.
Of course,
act as if you're recording a episode, or if you have
that might mean they go like, but
and just see what happens.
I get what you're saying. Of course,
push yourself a little bit with your conversation.
It's like when that 2-year-old starts to ask why for everything. So why do you like video games?
Why?
Because they're really fun. Why? Well, I don't know. I just they sometimes I like having in my evenings and to game. Why? Well, I find that I don't like to talk to people in person. But why? Well, I feel like I guess I'm just a little
hopefully a little more than that. Maybe you respond to what they say in between too.
Well, I'm just saying that's how I would talk to a kid about it.
Right? Yeah. If you're talking to a kid, yeah. But if you're talking to an adult friend, it might be a
little different. Yeah.
I do know someone actually that is like that. They'll always ask you things, but they'll never share a thing about themselves.
Why?
Exactly. It's very annoying. And so they will always be asking you questions about things.
They must be hiding something.
Well, there's a very unopen person, but they want to know everyone else, which is fine. But it's that also doesn't help. No. You have to be also sharing.
Yeah.
And so there is a middle line. You can overshare where you don't let them talk. That's a problem. And then you can undershare where you don't actually contribute anything. And then that's a problem.
Because if they acknowledge that you're undersharing, they'll start hiding and
it gives a feeling. Yeah, it gives a thing. So both sides of that. And so we hope to be bringing an example of that through a podcast, which is interesting for people, and within the general topics of lifestyle connected to your what you do with your life. Like I call it work, but like your life, like what you're doing with your life. It's a massive thing. Everyone has a whole chunk of their day,
work
typically a
is a
9 to 5-ish, but sometimes a 12-hour shift, whatever it is. But even when you're off work, you have that whole day, what you're gonna do with it. There's all this time, that chunk of your day that you're being proactively doing something, that part of the day. That's what we're talking to. And everyone has that part of the day. So this podcast really is for anyone who wants to improve their life. That whole, especially that main chunk of your day where what you want to be productive with doing in your day. That whole part. So
absolutely.
So yeah, I think it's a good place to end right there.
Absolutely.
So thanks for tuning in to the 6th episode of Free to Succeed podcast. And now we're going to be dropping episodes every single week. And
Free Friday.
It should be Friday.
Should be Friday.
Might be a little bold to say exactly Friday, but you know what? We'll try for it. We'll try for around
I like
there.
the boldness.
Yeah. All right. Well, we'll see you in the next one.